we are welcoming Vince Squillace for the archiTALK. And we are thanking EQUITONE for organizing this chat with architects on topics that they're close to their heart and that hopefully are of interest. So, Vince, I will say thank you, first of all, to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for including me, and I'd like to thank EQUITONE also for the series. I think it's going to be great, and I look forward to seeing other episodes also.
Yes, we're already working on season 2, actually, believe it or not.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it means that something good is happening. Let's give us a bit of a background about yourself, just to give an introduction.
To keep it short and sweet, I've run my own business for just over 25 years. I am an Australian architect of Italian heritage. I was born here, but I have Italian heritage, and I feel deeply connected to Italy as well as Australia, but probably very much Australian, I guess. But our architecture over the years has been an interesting mix of residential, commercial, hospitality, or one of the regular project types that we've worked on is our topic for today, which is adaptive reuse.
Yes.
And particularly in recent times. So I've chosen 3 projects to talk to you about today. And when one thinks of adaptive reuse, you would probably immediately think of a heritage building. And it's almost the most popular or the most common type. You would think, okay, well, you've got an inner city project, it's heritage listed, we're going to adaptively change the building fabric and use, which is very common. Sometimes you don't change the use, sometimes you do. So there's 2 issues there. The use might be common, but you do substantial alterations, and you have to look at how the new architecture talks to the old and how you save, where possible, a lot of the fabric. And then there's other types of adaptive reuse that don't necessarily involve heritage, but it may be that you're doing minimal works and the existing structure is worthy of being maintained.
Yeah.
And worthy not only from a cost perspective, but even from an environmental perspective.
Yeah.
Obviously, if the structure is good, and even if the cost of the project is similar, but the structure is good, then we get to save some of the environmental costs of complete demolition and reconstruction, as well as saving the narrative, the historical narrative in the area of that project.
And I love that you touch the historical narrative, because I think it's something that is really close to my heart. And in a little informal chat we had is, and maybe it's your Italian DNA, because it's very nice to have a history and a story, not necessarily history, but a story. And it's not necessarily say that the building have to be a 1700s building, no? So it can be even a
1980s.
Correct.
Well, I'll tell you, you'll see one of the projects is our own office, which is in a church in Surrey Hills.
Yeah.
And that's got an interesting story, and some of the story is very obvious, that it was a Gothic Methodist church that has now been adaptively reused for a commercial office, and the architecture clearly distinguishes old and new. But there's a different layer to this story. When you walk around the building, you see a little bit of patched brickwork that was done in the 1980s, and it was a bad workmanship. But that's part of the story.
Absolutely, exactly.
It's part of the story. There was a time that no one really cared whether you used matching bricks or not in these type of buildings because heritage wasn't valued. That's part of the story. And there's another part of the building that's 165 years old, and someone chased the convict Cropic sandstone to put an electrical conduit in. Well, again, part of the story.
It's part of the story. Embrace it and actually show it, because
it was silly.
The convicts
should never have been done, but it's part of the story.
Absolutely. And I think you're there. I can see the church window at the back of your screen.
Oh, okay. Right? Let's just okay. There it is, and
exactly.
There's the back. And I think if you tilt the camera up, you'll see a little bit of the ceiling above my office.
Oh yeah, beautiful with all the woodwork and the arches.
Maybe we'll take my laptop for a walk later. So the first project is a Paddington residence. this project is not heritage listed. It's a project that does have significant heritage value because it was originally designed in the 1980s by an architect called Peter Stronach, who was at the time the managing partner and design director of AJC, Allen Jack and Collier, who are one of the oldest architectural firms in the country. They've done a lot of work, and he personally has a lot of pedigree in design. So if I go to the next page, that's the original house. And as you can see, with the colour scheme and the tiles and the glass bricks, it's very much a 1980s.
Yes.
It was an award-winning house. It featured in magazines, and it was that real 1980s style.
Oh, look at this. Yeah, the volume and the detail.
The volume's amazing. There was the feature in this house. It backs onto Forbes Street. It officially has a Jersey Road address. The main feature here is this 3-story light well, which was amazing.
Yeah.
The staircase was one that caused a lot of issues for us because it eventually had to go because of the number of compliance issues. What we would have done to that staircase to make it comply to current regulations would have rendered it aesthetically abortive in my view, and as a result, we just photographed it well, and it was a building element that we could not retain because I think the original beauty would have been lost.
Yeah.
And that was.
Look at the double. Actually, 3-story, 1, 2, and 3. From the photos.
So then, that's Peter Stronach and myself meeting, and Peter at this stage is, I think it is in his late 80s, early 90s. He's retired, and the first thing I did on this project is call him, because I felt the responsibility to discuss what we were planning to do. And as you can see on the table there, we've got a drawing that I showed him. We talked through it. He really appreciated the opportunity to come and see his project, which had significantly changed from that original photo, which you'll see soon. And I enjoyed meeting him. We had a chat, and eventually I think he gave us a 9.5 out of 10 for the design. So we're very happy. That's the sketch that we showed him. This project for us was about how do you maintain the integrity of the original architecture, but create a contemporary alteration that maintains the spirit of the building, but satisfies the client's brief and really creates a significant upgrade to the building, both visually and in terms of just your buildability, leaks, waterproofing, structure, etc. So the installation of a lift, all the modern conveniences that a client will ask for. Yeah. So we created a bunch of sketches. As we've said, we really wanted to celebrate that 3-story void.
Because that void, that is a light, no? It's also a very light inside.
So we did a few sketches through the space and had to think about that void was to be celebrated. We moved the stair, and we've created what I believe
is down there.
We've gone from one interesting sculptural stair form to another.
If you go back on the shapes, because I know you say the original project was done in the 80s, but Peter Stronach is known for his kind of modernist shapes, and this it's the next one, I think. It really reminds me of the Guggenheim here. No?
Yeah,
so Guggenheim in New York with the opening and with kind of the balustrade and the terrace that opens up to the center.
I think you'll see the colours probably even more so. So we've taken the Stronach design and we've softened it a bit with some of these curves, not too much, but just ever so slightly. Created a really blank canvas. Our clients are very well-travelled people who have a significant art collection. We're looking to create a blank canvas that was very neutral and full of light, that just sets the canvas for their life, which includes themselves, obviously, and their art collection and their friends. And if you perhaps had a meeting of Peter Stronach and Richard Meyer,
yes,
you might start to imagine
absolutely where you went and the direction you took.
And the change through time. So obviously you've got the original house on the left. The middle image is what we inherited. The house was
what you found.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
That's right. So the middle image was the house that we found. They had removed the green tiles, painted it all white. It had a nickname called the White House. So it was actually nicknamed the White House, both in the media and for the local Paddington residents. And the house, and the image on the right is the house as completed.
You created.
It was a very light touch from the exterior.
Yeah,
as you can see.
it is. In fact, the actual structure and, as you say, the volumes have kept exactly the same.
It's a real light touch. I mean, obviously we've got that really heavy square frame that we put around the exterior, which has increased sun shading. It's increased privacy. It's accentuated the shape architecturally. It was a really light touch, and that was, again, going back to the adaptive reuse concept. The light touch was a functional touch, and we did not want to lose the soul of the form of this residence. And if anything, it's even more so the White House now than in the middle shot.
And it's beautiful, actually, that you accentuate the frame around, because then there are these small pilotis that they sustain, the coverage.
Yeah, and the main pilotis in the middle is this black steel column through here that we've
that you colored through.
We've coloured white.
Yeah,
but we've kept that.
Yeah,
I really found this quite even over here when it was painted that terracotta colour, I found it quite a grounding element architecturally.
Yeah. Because it's the connection to the ground. Absolutely.
It is.
And it's the lightness of a very solid structure. So it kind of balances out the act of,
Yeah, and if anything, probably we've turned it more into a pilotis than it ever was. The interiors is really where the bulk of the work was done. So this staircase was a bit of an engineering, So in replacing,
because it's all coming from the wall, actually.
It's cantilevered from the wall, and this glazing, the glass is not just a balustrade. The glass actually supports the treads.
Okay.
So the glass is 25 millimeters thick.
Wow.
It was engineered, and the connections from the glass into that tread.
Yeah.
The tread is timber, but the structure of it is steel. We had to involve structural engineers, glazing engineers, extremely detailed shop drawings. So the glass is actually the structural element.
Oh, wow. And the glass is bent as well to follow the curvy shape.
That glass is the balustrade glass. The stair glass is straight. The stair glass is straight.
Okay. So there is the little corridor around. Yes.
So we essentially kept most of the building fabric.
Yeah.
Even the glass. We didn't even change the glass. The glass is the same glass that was in the 1980s. We've obviously cleaned it up. We've re-siliconed the joints, changed the guttering. Anything in this building that you would expect to deteriorate over time was replaced. Roofing, guttering, silicon, the aluminium doors and windows, they had expired. Their lifetime had expired.
Yeah.
But the form of the building, this is a shot looking down the void.
From above, beautiful.
The form of the building, the structure of the building, the soul of the building feeds right into the adaptive reuse topic, because that's what we sought to maintain.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the more successful projects in terms of those that we've worked on where that I feel has been achieved. We've borrowed some daylight from the central void into some of the spaces, like the main bedroom ensuite. So this overhang here is the shower.
Is the shower bathroom. Yeah.
So we've borrowed some light from that void to give us some natural daylight in interior bathroom areas that would otherwise not receive and previously didn't.
And also the adjacent form of that bathroom is so, soft and sinuous and that is almost in contrast with the very square and solid shape of the outside. So
and
it's almost a different feeling when you enter from the photos you show, that is much more welcoming and warming shape and lines.
Basically, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted these curves to soften your experience on the inside.
Beautiful.
And you'll probably remember the original photos had the mosaic tiles in the bathroom, so we've reintroduced that. But again,
they were darker blue and more kind of
course.
vibrant, but you kept it, I noticed.
We've gone for a very white palette here, and that's specifically because of the client and their needs. Once we gave ourselves this task, we really went all the way with it. As you can see here, white is the predominant colour. There is a little bit of timber, but even the timber is muted.
Yes.
It's got a white oil through it.
Yes.
So it's all about the light. And you mentioned the Guggenheim. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Guggenheim previously. And again, if you go here now, they moved their furniture in after this photography. There's some really tasteful artwork in the residence.
You say that the client asked you to clearly be a place that can be a white canvas for the art collections. And
yes.
then, you know, so that's his... the brief. And in any case, as I mentioned it, I suppose that the shapes and the lines, that they are the architecture. So it's even when it's a white canvas, that the job you do to design the space and to shape the space, it's even more accentuated.
Minimalism involves a much higher degree of time and effort than otherwise.
Yeah,
if you like. It's hard to achieve.
Yes. It's hard to achieve.
So there's a little bit of their artwork.
So the light itself is an element, is a dimension of the architecture, the light itself.
Oh, very much so, very much so. The light is so important.
Yeah.
And this is probably my favourite photograph. Yeah.
Beautiful. Because you can see this, you know, the structural staircase and the volumes and the volume that comes from the light itself. Oh,
yes,
wonderful.
definitely.
Very, very beautiful.
This is the Bauer residence. This is a sketch that I prepared after my first meeting. It was inspired by the story. This is, again, it's not a heritage building. Probably contrasts. In the previous design, I gave one set of reasons why there was heritage.
Yeah.
And in this one, there's another set of reasons. And this house is about the social significance of this particular client and this brief. So the house, there's part of it. You could probably already
nice sandstone. Exactly. In any case, it's a beautiful, you know.
You could probably start to really sense there's a little bit of Frank Lloyd Wright sort of.
Again, I didn't want it to say, but
Walter Burley Griffin.
Is how you call the house on the water, the waterfall house?
Yeah, falling water.
Falling water. Thank you.
When you look at this sketch, you probably
absolutely. That's what I thought. The falling water house. Yes.
Basically, the client purchased back her family home.
Oh.
So she grew up in this house.
Yeah.
Her father was an architect.
Okay.
She is an architect, not currently practicing as an architect, but she's trained as an architect and did practice for a while. Her grandfather was a stonemason. They selected me to design their new house. So I had I felt like it was quite an emotional appointment for me because I just thought about the generations that her father, who was an architect and was taught stonemasonry by his father.
His father, yes.
He designed this house as their family home when they were kids, and she grew up here. They since sold it, and now she's purchased it back.
Wonderful.
And they asked me, so
the heritage.
It was incredible honour.
The family is the family heritage.
Family. So it's a family heritage, and I might say the architecture is nice as well. Like
absolutely.
It's a really, on many levels, has withstood the test of time. Much better than other buildings of this age, given the environment. It faces northeast on Bower Street, Manly. It's cops extreme weather.
I do my walks there, so I perfectly know the house. Yeah,
and
I perfectly know the house.
That's the house. This building here is 3 single-story apartments that we actually designed about 16 years ago.
Oh.
So, yeah.
They're the ones with the swimming pool in front, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I perfectly know because I walk there. Beside,
which is itself was an adaptive reuse, but anyway, that's for another time. So this house, it comes with amazing responsibility. There's father and daughter right there.
Oh, the architect and
the 2 architects.
The second architect, exactly.
The architect that built the house, built and designed the house, the architect, daughter. So there they are in their
just yourself missing there.
Yeah. So there's a couple of, as I've said, a couple of sketches that we developed in the early days. The most important thing for us were these amazing stone pillars. There's 3 of these very vertical. So there's one sort of over here. You can't see very well in that sketch. And there's 2 in the rear. There's 3 of these vertical pillars that were built by Bill Hummel, who is Cherie Hummel's father, the architect. He built these. They're beautiful, and irrespective of whether it's cheaper to knock it down or rebuild it, knocking it down was not even a consideration for me.
No.
Because, and quite frankly, they were speaking to other architects, and I did two things that they really appreciated. Firstly, I answered the phone on a Saturday.
Because it's your own practice. That is why. So.
And secondly, from the very outset, I made it clear that it's not even a financial decision for me. It's so socially important in terms of their family heritage that knocking the house down was not even an option.
Yeah.
And I think that really put us in sync with each other from the outset.
It's a double level of, conservation project. It's the conservation of the memories and the conservation of the actual structure and
absolutely.
building.
And I will say, so I failed to mention, this project's still on the drawing board, so to speak. We haven't even lodged it to council yet, so we're in the early days. But I just thought I'd share it with you because it's very unique, and it's something that we've got on the drawing board. We'll lodge it to council. There's no reason there's no major changes that we expect through the pre-DA process, so we're pretty confident this will be built. Now I've got to change through time, so the image on the right is a very preliminary image.
Yeah.
It's not. I wouldn't even call it a rendering at the moment. It's just ripped out of our computer. It's in its planning stages, but we've really looked to maintain not only the social significance, the family significance, but once again, whatever fabric is in good condition and can be reused should be.
Yes.
It's our environmental position. Yes. So obviously the living areas at the top is probably the biggest change to this structure, and that's where we've created this concrete free-flowing roof that can provide them overshadowing and shelter to their living room balconies, and that's the language expression.
I know I say the falling water house, but it's also the materiality apart from the shape itself, because if you ever visited saw it in architectural books.
I have.
The falling water house is stone, glass and concrete, right? So it is.
And steel windows, which we can't use here, but they won't last very long in this environment.
No, in the power.
I'll say this. I have really borrowed some elements of that house. I'm not unashamedly borrowed some elements of that house. And I think it's something that was started by the original architect, and it's something that I've really felt to continue. Yeah. So these original pillars, we've preserved those. They'll be cleaned and rectified. As was the case with the Paddington House, all of the windows and electricals and plumbing, all of that will be stripped completely because it's outlived its life. But to whatever extent we can save anything that's masonry, concrete, we will, and we have, and that's the.
And also
that's the
structurally, it doesn't look you're changing much of the actually outside outline of the building.
We're adding
the extension on top, exactly.
Yeah,
we're adding the same volume, like.
We're essentially there's a bit of there's an extension from the living area to the back garden that doesn't currently exist that we're creating, because the back garden is a beautiful private secluded zone, and there's an extension up here. But apart from that, the footprint is quite similar.
Yeah.
The interiors will be stripped bare and redone. And this is a life cycle thing. Like, you bathroom tiles, waterproofing, electrical, plumbing. These things have an expiry date and they need to be redone. And I have told my client this. I don't think this is going to cost any less than a new building.
Oh, yeah.
But
it keeps the soul of the place, and
it'll cost less to the environment, and it will be a far better value to the client, because it will tell the story about its evolution and the choice that we all made to save the history and to save the fabric of this building. And for a product that I don't think would have been better anyway if it was new.
Yeah, but if you say it's a value for even the future, because apart from environmentally and apart from the client itself, is also that in 50 years, this building will be still functional and still beautiful because of the work that has been added and done to keep it, but still will have part and original structure of. So instead of being built, kind of 50 years old, it's going to be 100 years old, and then it's going to be 150 years old. So
that's right.
And that's the point. That is the history of the country that I think is beautiful.
And that's the very point. And in 50 years' time, the exercise may happen again. The aluminium windows might need to be replaced. The bathroom tiles might need to be replaced. Maybe the garage will be turned into something else because there won't be cars.
The car will not exist. Absolutely.
Driverless Ubers or whatever we're doing then. So
correct. Yes.
It'll be primed for an adaptive reuse once again. And if this process repeats, as long as the quality of construction in the main structure is maintained, that's the future, I think, in Sydney. And I know you mentioned Italy before. That's what you do there. You don't demolish things that are
correct. Remodernize it and give a second life, a third life, a fourth life. So that's why the building that are, 200 years old, 300 years old. So it's the same story here, because as we said, they can be 100 years old in a second flash almost, right?
Absolutely, that's right. The next project, the last for today's discussion, is my own office, my home away from home. It's 80 Albion Street, Surrey Hills. I occupy one of the tenancies in this building, so there are multiple tenancies.
Okay.
The project involves the church and the old presbytery. This is a heritage adaptive reuse. So this project has to be adaptively reused because it's heritage listed and you don't have a choice. So now it's about how you do it and how you tell the story, and it's in the detail. The church was built in the 1890s.
Okay.
And it's a Gothic Methodist church. It was built by the Methodist Presbyterian Church, who 10 years later sold it to the Roman Catholic Church. So it was significantly extended by the Roman Catholic Church. The building next door, which is the old presbytery, actually encased a previously built building. So the story's amazing. So there was a 3-story sandstone convict-built building that dates back to 1850. Beneath the veranda of this building, it was an inn, which is like a pub with a hotel room.
Like a hotel, a cheap hotel for people that they were traveling between places.
It was called the Apple Tree Inn. It sat there. The church was built. Then the Roman Catholics bought it. Then they turned that inn. They extended it in 1901 and turned it into a 3-story Victorian house for the priests. Because there's one subterranean story. So that's, you see 2 above ground.
And one below.
The street slopes steeply to the back lane, Albion Lane, a little Albion Street.
So there are windows on the other side.
Yeah, there's a courtyard and there's windows on the other side.
Yeah.
This was the state of the church. It was abandoned. There was grass growing out of the bricks. This was the Victorian building was stripped of a lot of its detail. Then there was a terrible addition. So it lost all the parapet. A terrible 1980s addition, very badly thought through. This is the finished product. So as you can see, again, it's a light touch. Very light touch to the church. We completely restored the facade. We did to this extension what probably should have happened, which is at least the cornice details, the window details, new windows and parapet extensions. The better versions of these that you see around the place, formerly 2-story buildings that were extended, were quite often an extension that at least replicated some of the detail.
Yeah.
So this is the interior of the church
it was owned by the church and then was sold by the church because...
Yes, it was. And this is the interior of the church. The ceiling was very dark. It wasn't natural timber, actually. It was painted terracotta.
Was not made out of timber? Was made out of timber.
It was made out of timber, but it was painted. It was painted a terracotta colour. Yeah. You could probably just start to see a little bit there.
Yes, in there. I can see.
It was painted a terracotta colour. The main trusses were stained a dark stain, which was great. So that's what it now looks like.
Oh, the result.
The trusses were stained, and we were able to repair and stain the trusses. As the timbers were already painted, we just painted them white to increase the daylight. And the light's really important in this space because the windows are stained glass, so it does obscure a lot of the light. But it is a beautiful light. They're all original stained glass windows. Yeah, our approach with all of this was everything that was new would contrast the architecture, be placed within the building, including the office that I'm in now. Raw steel, glass, off the walls.
Yeah. So you didn't touch any of the fabric of the original structure. Yeah.
No. Yeah. We repaired the fabric where required.
Yeah.
If there had to be any fixing into the fabric, it was very, very minimal. There was no chasing, nothing like that.
Beautiful.
And we created these steel pods around the place that were built off the boundaries and very much about steel and glass.
Yeah.
And a very contrasting.
At that point, it's a really strong contrast. And again, like you were saying, it gives more attention to the existing and more attention to what is
and again,
the new addition.
When you walk around this precinct, that was downstairs. When you walk around this precinct, you see the story. The story is there's the original building fabric.
Yes.
And
but this is the story of the 2020s. So there are two stories getting together. Yeah.
That's right.
It's almost like a grandma and a nephew, right?
Yeah.
They both have.
Yes, why not? Or a great grandson. So the level below the church, which was it was almost a fire hazard the way it looked, that now looks like this. So it was.
So again, we left all of the beams.
Left the brickwork, left the structure. And then again, all of the additions, the lighting, the services were all clearly identified in black steel, glass, so that it was extremely clear what was original and what was new. And that's, as you walk through the place, anyone could tell. You don't have to be a trained professional in this place to understand what has been added and what hasn't been.
Absolutely.
This continues. This is the courtyard between the two. And then this is what it looks like now.
Oh, I saw it when you brought the title.
It's enclosed in glass. New window frames are black, steel and glass. Existing windows are existing. This new extension at the rear, this triangular extension, is all steel and glass. And everything else is maintained and repaired.
You have the old and the new, chatting together and integrating together. So it's
that's right.
Wonderful, really.
And that is the narrative. It's the old and the new, and it's extremely
interacting and
contrasting.
But beautifully, harmoniously contrasting.
And
it's an harmonious contrast.
That's right. And in heritage speak, reversible. Then absolutely. You could, if someone in 50 years or 100 years, if the church bought it back and wanted to convert it back into a church and take away all the new pieces, they can, you take away everything that's steel and glass and fix it and replace it and repair it, and you've got the original building back. Inside, the presbytery became a house, and here's some of the photos. And then inside, they're now offices.
Wow.
And this is a new triangular extension at the rear. It creates a relationship between the church. So there's a real introspective view for the offices. They have a major view into the courtyard, and there's always that connection with the church and the stained glass windows and the slate roof. This is the photo in the top right-hand corner is the 1980s extension that was extended, the ceiling was raised, and all of the new elements, again, were steel and glass.
Yeah.
You get these amazing views through there.
You can really read your language that is playing with volumes and adjacent shapes and light, because although certain part of this church, being a church, they don't have so much natural light, but you kind of try to use as much as possible the natural light coming in, and designing the space and underlining the spaces. How long ago did you do this project?
This is recent, actually, and the restaurant is undergoing a fit out at the moment. That's the last tenancy. So this will be completely finished in about 2 or 3 months. This new, which is another important aspect of adaptability, maybe the last thing in this conversation that is important from my perspective is the other aspect of adaptability is the materials. Now, this brickwork, so a lot of this project involved demolition of some of the building that was a 1920s extension. It was the least important. However, the bricks were held together with lime and sand mortar, not cement.
Yeah.
And obviously with lime and sand mortar, it's very easy to clean off bricks. So instead of throwing the bricks away, there was about 6,000 bricks that were removed. Instead of throwing the bricks away and bringing new bricks into the building, we cleaned the bricks and used them for the new walls. So this extension in the back corner was,
so it's a new wall.
That's a new extension.
But with the existing bricks.
No, this is existing inside here. I'll take you to the photo. See these bricks on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
That's a new wall using the bricks that were demolished.
Okay.
So we actually didn't remove any bricks and we didn't bring any in. We reused what was on site, even though it was demolished.
So that is
there are many
sustainability as well, right?
That's right, and that's again, and that's part of the story as well. You look, you're in that room, and you're clearly in a new part of the building, but there's old bricks.
Yes,
probably could be a mystery for some people.
Amazing project, beautiful.
That's it. That's what I've got for you today.
So it's amazing. I really love the subject because thank you. It is something that is close to my heart, and I think it's really important to embrace, the history and enhance it and underline it. And
look, I love
your work is beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. I love the type of project brief that enables you to take on this type of project. I think it's going to be an important topic for many building types, not just heritage. And it's something I see it as, obviously there are some circumstances where buildings will be demolished and there's nothing you can do about it, but it's the adaptive reusability of buildings that are not just heritage is an important consideration for architects and for developers or for homeowners. And it's something that needs a bit of time spent on it.
Beautiful chatting to you. Beautiful meeting you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to the rest of the series.
Yes.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much. You too. Bye.